All right, we're in OpenAI's 12 Days of Christmas. I don't know why they're doing that, but it's finally here. They have released Sora, not in my hands, but in the hands of numerous individuals that are able to finally. I mean, we've been seeing this for months. This came back out in February. This official report, our first eyes on it, and it's finally in the hands. And of course, if you're the king of YouTube and you're a technology reviewer, and I mean MKBHD, huge fan, hardware reviewer, but he gets his hands on Sora and gets to test it out before a lot of people. That's great. I mean, that just tells his status. Anyway, he's got some great insight in his utilization of it. I don't know his education and background of actual AI and machine learning, but I do love his thoughts and his observations as a user and as a content creator. So I guess it does actually make sense. But here it is, Sora. We've seen these crazy videos, but why OpenAI? They are kind of the state of the art when it comes to LLMs and chatbots, and a lot of it revolves around our user experience, getting the appropriate, accurate outputs, and a lot of people have just gravitated towards it. They were pretty much first to market when they put out GPT, and I think 3 is really when it took off, based on the transformer models that they use, and have held that spot. They've kept reiterating into their process, making their models better. Now, am I going to pay $200 a month for it? Absolutely not. But it is interesting that they can build off their technology and create these amazing videos. One thing I do like, and they've gotten a lot of backlash in the past, is that they do publish now more background, more transparency. There is no legal requirement here in the United States unless it's based on a state level, like Denver has it, Texas is looking at it, and California is constantly going back and forth on what they want to enact. But a lot of people, now this doesn't go to the level that Meta does as far as their carbon output, what hardware is it being trained on, but it's better than nothing. Like here, the model data. I think OpenAI gets a lot of heat, and deservedly so, on training their information, their models, on proprietary information and not giving a kickback to those that they're benefiting from. But here it says it's built on select publicly available data, mostly. I think that's some legalese there, because I don't know what else. If it's mostly, there's got to be at least some percent that it's not publicly available of these data sets, collected from industry standard machine learning data sets and web crawls, proprietary data from data partnerships, so licensing houses. Looks like they partnered with Shutterstock, Pond 5 on some of that, and then human data feedback, people training it, red teaming it, and whatnot. And they're even able to put out here what their accuracy is. And I'll actually get into that. I found a patent, kind of like a little bit of the secret sauce. Now, as a background as a patent lawyer, this is where I tend to bias towards, because this is kind of definitive, governmentally recognized the market differentiation, if you will. And there's even an associated paper about it. But going back to their system card, you can see that their accuracy is improved here. And I think that's kind of like the magic of why OpenAI is so popular. When you have inputs, you get the desired outputs, at least anecdotally looking at it. It's exactly what you want. And if you're using more open source models, it gets a little messy there, and you have to do a lot of fine tuning yourself, or even some other competitor models. Now, there are other models like Anthropic puts out that are highly competitive, but I think at this point, objectively, we can say that OpenAI is kind of leading the market and the whole enveloping customer experience, user experience with their models. And that's really what, if I go back to this patent, what this is all about. It's not enough to do text to image generation. It's the ability to validate what that output is going to be with perhaps text prior to creating the output image, thereby increasing the accuracy. Because if a user is going to be using something like Sora and it's not giving them exactly what they want, then that's a big problem. And that's kind of what is really cool about what's going on here in this video, and I'll put links to everything in the description of what OpenAI does, where they're able to put in a prompt and it gets the result that they want. And I don't know if they did any finagling for this presentation, but it appears that they're doing it actively and are very confident in their model's performance. So here they were looking for a woolly mammoth, they get this output, but then they go on to say that, hey, let's change that woolly mammoth into a robotic woolly mammoth. And then boom, there it is. That, to me, is absolutely insane. And if you're curious, all this is really built off our diffusion models. I say that in an overly simplistic manner. So on the training sources that they have, what it does is it takes the image and does forward diffusion, where it takes it, or reverse diffusion, and I guess in the initial case, and takes it and reduces it down to the noise. And if you're curious what it looks like to a computer, so just a little background, LLMs, like computers, don't read text. They change everything into numbers, and the same goes for imagery. And if you look here, this is a paper on Towards Data Science about computer vision. It takes all the pixels, converts them down to numbers, and that's what's going on here in a diffusion model. But there's extra steps into reducing it down to noise, is basically what it comes down to, and then storing that into the model in the parametric memory. So then on a forward diffusion, let's see, is this forward diffusion? I'm getting these backwards. Either way, one's forward, one's backward. So on the backward, when you put input a text, what it's starting with is here into a bunch of noise, and then going and interpolating each of the data points and eventually coming out with the output of the image. And getting that into frame by frame into a video is what it appears Sora is doing better than everyone else. So getting the right validation of what the user potentially is going to want with high probability from the text input into the output. Now, a couple things that MKBHD, Marquez Brownlee, talks about is the things that it does bad. Well, weak object permanence, meaning that things are clipping into each other as the videos. Let's see if he has it here. Yeah. So the ducks are going into one another. Sure. These aren't actual physical things represented in imagery. Everything in there is purely just data, and it's trying to create an image based on changing every single pixel within a given frame. So it looks a little wonky. And his other issue is physics. Of course, there are no physics engines creating, and perhaps there is some sort of hybrid model using like an Unreal Engine physics model paired with Sora in the future to create more hyper realistic imagery with physics, reduce clipping, and that's potentially, I guess, where the future could go. Now, I do believe, I have one more to go here. There are open source models, of course. You can see here a comparison that someone posted on a Stable Diffusion subreddit of what an open source model versus OpenAI Sora looks like. There are highly competitive open source models, but I think, again, it's all about user experience. If you look here, the ability to just have cards pretty much in like a editing timeline, and just to be able to input card by card exactly what you want, but then you can go back, and they show here the ability to edit the output of the video, reduce it, and then add another card. It's about the user experience, because on this subreddit, you can see, and I'll quickly go past all that. Where is it? Well, someone had like a, let's see if I keep going. Someone had a screenshot, and perhaps it's not here, of what the workflow looked like. And like, of course, it's going to be way more complicated when you're using open source models. With that being said, I think open sourceness is eventually going to catch up, and people are going to get more sophisticated and look for alternatives, because Sora is right now just incredibly expensive, and you only get a finite amount of outputs unless you got that $200 a month or whatever their premium model is. But this is, to me, is really cool. With the safeguards that something like a model card provides, that it needs to be used responsibly. We don't want to see these things rampantly output there. Here's risk areas: child safety, making sure things aren't being output that it shouldn't otherwise be seen. The outputs, nudity, protections, not creating things that are inherently just bad, and reducing deep fakes, fraud, and whatnot. But we're adults collectively within the world. We have to responsibly use these new tools and make sure that they're safe. But interesting step forward. Congratulations, OpenAI Sora. We'll be very interested to see what all the competitors will be coming out with in the future.